but is going to have a profound change in the internet. And so what I want to do today is spend about the next 20 to 25 minutes giving you the overview of what's happening, telling you who's applied, who hasn't, what it means, what strategies they might use, and then tie it back to what is important to you, which is how is that going to impact search and navigation of the internet. So when I talk to people about top-level domains, the biggest analogy I can think of is that it is truly a big bang. And so let me just explain that. The reason I use this is because today, this is what the internet looks like. The internet we've been using for the last 15, 20 years is comprised of 23 top-level domains, largely driven by .com. It's a pretty straightforward universe that we live in. But it is about to explode, and it's about to explode into thousands of top-level domains. And the reason this is different than any other time that we've had an expansion of a top-level domain is because it's happening at a big scale. It is truly a big bang. We're going from 23 top-level domains to thousands. So let me give you a few of the facts of what happened. In case you didn't know, ICANN, which is the organization that runs the internet, allowed last January through April for any company, any individual to apply for their own top-level domain. The filing fee was about $185,000. So for some companies, that seemed like a high price tag. For others, they realized it was an investment in important internet real estate. What happened during that time period is that there were actually 1,930 applications. And of those 1,930 applications, 116 were the IDNs. So those are new domains that will be in Chinese, Arabic, Cyrillic, etc. So that's a really big deal because in the past, that's never been possible before. So for people in those countries, this is a huge opening and globalization of the internet. For everyone else, what we realized is that there were 1,409 unique strings, which means we will expect to see the internet actually expand from 23 top-level domains to 1,409. And ICANN has pledged that it will open this up again in the next few years. So we could see an exponentially expanding internet universe. What's most important about the statistics, and you can see some of the geographic, where did they come from, but what's most important to me is that half of the world's top brands applied. 36 of the Fortune 100 companies applied. And so that's really what's driving consumer change. I want to talk to you a little bit about the different categories of top-level domains, but then really focus in on the digital leaders who drive search and navigation and the brands who will market to consumers. So a lot of people will be saying, hey, why is this any different? Again, why is this different than any other time? And the real question is, there's been $350 million invested in the application fees alone. So if you think that half of the world's brands are just going to make that investment and do nothing with it, I think you're wrong. So let me tell you a little bit about what's happened. These are some of the top filers in general. Donuts, which is a company you probably haven't heard of, but you will, because they are going after .com. They've applied for 307 generic top-level domains, and their primary purpose is to drive all businesses and people away from a .com and into their portfolio. Google likewise applied for 101. And I'll go into more of what Google applied for. Amazon, 76. Top-level domain holdings, Famous for Media. These are all companies who've applied for large portfolios of generic top-level domains, and they have hundreds of millions of dollars in venture capital behind what they're doing with an intention of changing the way people use the internet. So these are just a few of the top filers. In the brand space, I mentioned Google and Amazon, but L'Oreal also applied for 14 top-level domains, some of which would be more in the generic category like beauty or salon or hair. Richemont applied for 14. Dish Network applied for 13. You think that they don't think cable's going to change and that cord's being cut? That's why they're applying for 13 different top-level domains. Scripps Networks, Microsoft, Johnson & Johnson are all just a few of the big brand filers. Just a few of the top contested strings, .app, .home, .inc. What that means is that more than one person wanted one of these top-level domains, so they think there's a lot of value in them. And what that also means is that that will ultimately go to the highest bidder. When there's more than one applicant who meets the criteria, then the highest bidder will win. So we expect to see anywhere from $10 to $100 million more for these apps being pumped into the system. So the way this breaks down is that there are basically 4 categories of top-level domains. There's the generic space, things like search, blog, Inc., LLC, mom, all of these terms that are generic terms. There are 900 plus of these. I can tell you they cover everything from sports to corporate activity to savings and coupons, free, gratis, you name it, somebody applied for it. There are 900 plus of these. So this is a really big category that you're going to want to watch because you're going to want to see who and how do they migrate from com into one of these generics. The next category that's important is to realize that there are communities being formed. So communities around different religious organizations, or the pharmaceutical industry, or the banking industry. They've applied to own a community top-level domain, which means they'll regulate that in terms of who can have one of those domain names. So this is where we start to see this segmentation occurring, almost like zip codes, where the top-level domain is becoming a category indicator of what that domain name or that website is about. The next category is the geographic category. And what's interesting here is you can see that in North America, we had the smallest number of applications. Only New York City, Vegas, Toronto, or Quebec, I think it was, and Miami applied. Whereas in Europe and Africa, we saw many cities applying. Now what that means is that those cities can control that top-level domain to be only for their businesses and their residents. So again, it's a categorization of the internet in a way that we don't currently have today. And then the brand category, and I'll move right into this because the brand category is really one of the most important drivers. These are the companies that are going to market to consumers to use their top-level domain versus a .com. So in the retail and consumer goods sector, we saw Heinz, L'Oreal, Safeway, Del Monte applying, SC Johnson Wax, Johnson & Johnson were some of the big ones. On the retail side, I know there were some people here from Macy's and Home Depot, but also Target and Walmart have made major applications, including multiple top-level domains. On the luxury goods side, Hermes, Chanel, many of the luxury brands who suffer from counterfeiting have applied. And in the automobile industry, we saw almost every major auto manufacturer apply for their suite of brands as a top-level domain. In the media, travel, and entertainment space, we saw games and social like Sony, PlayStation, Transformers, Xbox all apply. In the network space, we saw CBS, ABC, HBO, Showtime, to name just a few. On the sports side, what was interesting is the NBA applied, the Major League Baseball applied, the NFL applied. And in food and travel, we saw the Marriott apply, Delta Airlines apply, McDonald's apply, a number of food and travel related organizations have all applied. In the B2B and financial services, almost every major bank has applied for their own top-level domain. Almost all of the B2B services, the big consulting companies, FedEx, UPS, they've applied. On the insurance side, almost every major insurance company applied. And in the tech and pharma area, most of the big software companies, Apple, Microsoft, IBM, Google, and I'll talk more about Google in a minute, but they've all applied. All of the big hardware manufacturers, the software manufacturers, they've all applied. In the imaging area, Canon was an early committer to the program, Epson, Fujitsu. The pharmaceutical side, we saw most of the big pharmaceuticals like Pfizer and Eli Lilly apply. And on the services, AOL, Xerox, Yahoo have all applied for their own top-level domain. So I want to take just a couple minutes to talk to you about paradigm shifts because this is hard for a lot of people to accept that this truly is a paradigm shift. We just happen to have noticed that it's coming. So I want to just show you a clip from 1994 from the Today Show when they're talking about this thing called the internet.
And then it sounded stupid when I said it. Violence at NBC.
I heard around or about in the lunchroom.
See, there it is. Violence at NBC, GE.com. I mean,
well, Allison should know.
What is internet anyway?
Internet is that massive computer network, the one that's becoming really big now.
What do you mean? That's big? How does one, what do you write to it like mail?
No, a lot of people use it and communicate with, I guess they can communicate with NBC writers and producers. Allison, can you explain what internet is?
No, she can't say anything in 10 seconds or less.
So can you explain what the internet is? I mean, that was in 1994. That wasn't that long ago where they're sitting on the Today Show saying, what is this thing called the internet? Why, what do you send, like mail? What is that @ symbol? That wasn't that long ago. And my point in saying that is that sometimes paradigm shifts are hard to see. Like many people are looking at this saying, well, why is anybody going to change from .com? Why are consumers going to adopt to this or change this? I don't believe it's going to happen. Well, back in 1994, they didn't understand what the internet was. And today we understand it's had a profound impact on every aspect of our life. Just a couple of other quick stories on paradigm shifts. Some of you may have heard this story about Bill Gates before, but back in 1981, when he was selling his computer system to IBM and what would ultimately be the founding of Microsoft, he did something that was very unique at the time, and that is he carved out the software. He said to IBM, I want to own the software. You can buy my computer system, but I own the software. And as the story goes, IBM laughed. They said, who's ever going to buy a piece of software by itself? Nobody's ever going to buy software. He didn't think it was an industry. They didn't think it was an industry. Well, who's laughing now? He's proven that software is a standalone industry, but at that time, no one could see it. Likewise, Facebook. Who would have thought 10 years ago that people would live their lives digitally through Facebook, or that Facebook and Twitter could start revolutions in the Middle East? These are things that at the time when they're starting, we don't see them, we don't understand it. So it's easy to say it's not going to change, it's not going to have an impact. But the people who succeed are the ones who get it, who see what's coming, and they innovate around it. So I say that these paradigm shifts often seem unlikely, and I know there's been a lot of negative reviews of the GTLDs, so I just want to get you in that frame of mind as we talk through some of the strategies of what these brands might be using and how it could impact search and navigation and how it integrates with social and mobile technology, that you realize while it sounds far-fetched and it sounds like it's not going to have an impact, the scale of what's happening here is truly a coming paradigm shift. So here's who you want to look at, the big digital leaders. Google's applied for 101. Now at $185,000 an application, even for Google, that's a pretty decent sized investment to apply for 101 applications. So if you think they did that and they're just going to sit on the sidelines and do nothing with it, I can tell you that you're wrong there. They have big plans for what they're going to do. And what's most interesting about what Google has done is they've applied for some of their top level domains to be open systems, meaning they will be reselling to consumers, to businesses, domains in their portfolio. So they are going to go head-to-head with .com as well, along with donuts and all these other generics. They're going to tell you, hey, move over into one of our portfolio domain names, and we'll package it up with data, and we'll package it up with all the other pieces that we're selling as Google right now. And they're going to have the power to do that. What's interesting is Google carved out a few of these for their own use. A few of their brands like YouTube, which could become an even more powerful channel when it's at the top level. They've carved out search, they've carved out blog, they've carved out a few of these to say, we're not going to just resell those, we're going to use them for our own purpose. Amazon, on the other hand, has applied for 76. Every single one of their applications is applied as a closed system, meaning only for their use or their affiliates. So what we expect to see Amazon doing is creating affiliate programs for businesses to participate in their portfolio and be able to utilize that for their advantage, so that it's an affiliate program rather than just an open reselling. Microsoft, they had a smaller portfolio, but powerful nonetheless, as Microsoft is the software that's still powering much of business, and they'll have these 11 top-level domains also as closed systems. So this is who you really want to watch, because they're going to be the drivers of consumer behavior. But it's not just them, it's the other brands that'll have an impact as well. And so what we see happening is that as these top-level domains start to take effect, and I'll go through some of the strategies here, but what we anticipate happening is that domain names are no longer going to be just .com as the gold standard. That's not going to be what branding people or marketing people say, we have to have a .com. They're going to start to think about, where should we have our domain? And how does that intersect with what we're doing in social media and how people get to us through social media? How does it affect how people are using mobile technology, maybe as a potential interface? And then how do they ultimately get to our home base, to our anchor on the internet? And should that be somewhere other than .com? Does it have value to us in other ways? So the big question you should be asking for right now is, which of your competitors applied, and what can they do with a top-level domain that you can't do with .com? Because that's really the big question I get all the time. And there are advantages, there are things that you can do as a top-level domain that you can't do as a .com. So let's talk through some of those strategies. The first primary strategy that brands will use is that their top-level domain is the one true authentic brand. It's not a typo, it's not a fraudulent site, it's not a phishing email that directs you to the wrong place. It's the one true brand. So for banks who are suffering from phishing and fraudulent sites, this is a way to educate consumers, hey, only trust it if it's .JP Morgan or if it's .Amex. Only trust it if it ends in our name. That's pretty powerful for consumers, right? So many consumers are misled into typos or fraudulent sites that look like the real thing because they're in com and everyone trusts com. But now when these brands say, hey, don't trust that, only trust us, that's going to start to change consumer behavior. The automobile companies, likewise, they can only give a domain name to someone who's an authorized reseller or authorized repair shop. So BMW can give only the places that they want a .BMW extension. So that again starts to provide consumers a benefit. I want to get my car repaired, but I want to know it's by an authorized Lexus dealer or an authorized BMW dealer. If it doesn't end in BMW, it's not us. That starts to have value. The same in the insurance industry, same basic argument. For the pharmaceuticals, who are also always plagued with counterfeiting, they can educate consumers. So as these brands start to market to consumers this authentication and trust and security issue, it's going to impact everyone. Because if you have your company and .com and all these other companies are telling people not to trust com, you got to figure out what you're going to do. Do you want to be in one of these communities that relates to your business? Do you want to be in another generic that might have more credibility, that might be marketing credibility? Or do you want to partner with a brand and become an affiliate of them so you can also offer consumers that level of security and trust? What was interesting here in this list is you can see who applied and then who didn't. MasterCard, Wells Fargo. Oh, sorry about that. Some celebrities didn't apply. I thought we would see more celebrities for a variety of reasons applying, and we didn't see any celebrities applying this round. And a lot of the big franchises that could benefit from controlling their top-level domain didn't apply either. The next big strategy that is key for brands is creating a more robust consumer experience and mining the data. We all know we live in a world of big data right now. Well, let me tell you the easiest way to capture more data is to have a closed ecosystem. For these brands, they can continue to use their .com, but as they migrate over into their own top-level domain, like a .Macy's, a .Delta, a .Marriott, they're going to be able to provide a system that's easier for consumers to navigate because it could be my name, JenWolfe.Marriott, and that's my homepage, or on Delta. They can make it even easier for me to navigate through contests, promotions, through personalized pages, through affiliate programs that they might have. So as it becomes easier and easier for me to use their site, I'm going to use it more. And because it's a closed ecosystem, they can track all that data. If you think about what happens in com right now, every time you type in a .com website, it goes to a VeriSign facility where it's resolved and it comes back to you. VeriSign has the ability to track all of that data across com in a way that most people don't pay much attention to unless you're in the registrar business, but they are actually tracking that data. Well, once you own that top level, you are like VeriSign. You're controlling it. So you're going to be able to capture all that data. And the secondary benefit is the consumers who are typing in .Macy's are only resolving within other people typing in .Macy's, so it's going to be faster. So when you combine that with the fiber optic cable being laid and the ability to now, in a faster way, navigate a website, it's going to have a benefit to consumers. As these brands start to educate consumers, hey, come to our domain name because it's better and it's faster and we can give you a better experience, that's when consumers will start to migrate. So that's where we can start to see that consumer adoption of the top-level domain as a way to search and navigate the internet. Interestingly, who didn't apply, the luxury retailers like Nordstrom, Saks, Neiman Marcus didn't apply. Some of our top advertisers, sorry about that. Some of our top advertisers like P&G, Coca-Cola, Unilever, and I talked with a lot of those. I'm working with many of these brand applicants right now in developing their strategy, and I've talked with a lot of the non-applicants. And for some of these big consumer goods, I think that their concern was not so much the money, because $185,000 isn't that much for a company like P&G or Coca-Cola, but that there was just too much uncertainty around it. And they realized that ICANN was likely to open this up again for a second round within the next 2 to 3 years. And they said, let's see how this plays out, and then we can come in and apply. But I think what you're going to see when these other companies like Gap and Home Depot and Macy's start using their top-level domains and have a competitive edge, all these other companies will follow. And it's that scale and that volume that has the paradigm shift. So probably most notably, the big company who didn't apply was Facebook, Twitter, and Pandora. And I've talked to some people from Facebook, and I think they're so focused on mobile right now, they didn't view this as on strategy for them. But again, I think we're going to see some of those big social media companies jumping in, either by acquiring an existing top-level domain or by moving in the next round. The other big strategy that we'll see that will drive consumer behavior is the internet really replacing cable, replacing traditional TV and traditional TV networks. There's signs of this all over the place. You see Google laying fiber optic networks, providing higher speed, faster internet. We see the race to have the flat screen that's a smart TV that can connect to the internet, that can do everything for you. And as that shift occurs, these GTLDs become the channels. That's what you're surfing on the internet. So every single one of these companies, from HBO, Travel Channel, the Weather Channel, Transformers, Netflix, NFL, they can all now use their top-level domain as a channel. Again, keep in mind, they have the same benefits that we've talked about. It's secure, it's authentic, you can trust it. We can now create a navigation that's easier than within COM. We can use that to capture data. This has enormous value for these companies, and they'll be able to use it then as an extension of their existing networks, because that's what people will be using. So I think we'll see for many companies that might not be in the content business, they're going to get into the content business. And we already see some of that with Google and Amazon, and we know they're acquiring content and they're moving into that space. So that's where we'll start to see these GTLDs truly becoming the channels that people surf, and that's why they'll have so much value. That's why getting in early and acquiring that real estate that was so important has a real competitive edge for these companies. So who didn't file? In the sports category, the PGA, NHL, and tennis didn't apply. Disney did not apply, Viacom, MTV, NBC did not apply, whereas ABC and CBS did. Again, that's where I think we'll want to look to see how do these companies who didn't apply partner with companies who did, or how do they move away from COM and into some of these other generics when they realize COM is being diluted and being less trusted over the next couple of years as this takes shape. The next strategy that we'll see is the cornering the customer with cloud computing. Again, the security issue. As a top-level domain, you can promise consumers a level of trust that you can't promise with COM. COM is being resolved through VeriSign. It's easily attacked from fraudulent sites, phishing sites. At a top-level domain, you have a greater level of security. So companies like Deloitte and KPMG and Accenture, who are providing very high-level services to their customers, or Microsoft or IBM providing cloud computing sources, they're going to be able to use these top-level domains to promise businesses a higher level of security. That's going to have a huge value. So for the entrepreneurial companies who may be trying to provide similar services but don't have a top-level domain, they're again going to have a competitive issue that they're going to have to overcome. And again, that could be overcome by potentially looking at some of the generics that relate to cloud computing or that relate to security. There's actually a secure site that is intended to provide a higher level of security. You're going to want to look at what are some of these other options so that we can compete. The next strategy that we'll see is enhanced search for sale, and I know this is what's likely very important here. When the internet expands, as we're talking about, at a very scaled level in a pretty short period of time, people are going to be confused. We know brands are going to market to them, they're going to tell them what all the benefits are, and that's going to help drive behavior. We know Google and Amazon and Microsoft are going to drive behavior. But what's really going to happen is there's going to be a huge opportunity in the search space because people are going to be confused. They're going to need help. How do I navigate now in this new world of thousands of top-level domains? So I anticipate we'll see the big players coming out with new products, new services, new offerings, new ways to help ensure that people find you when they're looking for you. And I think we'll also see entrepreneurs. I mean, this is really when entrepreneurs and innovators have opportunity, when there's change, when there's pain. People are going to feel pain. Businesses, consumers. So where is that opportunity? That opportunity lies in how are we providing search. Is it premium search for people who are willing to pay for it? Is it a different type of search? I don't know. Those are the opportunities that exist. But we know search is going to become different because it's going to become more complex. You're not just looking within a few top-level domains, you're looking within thousands. And each one of those top-level domains has a different set of rules. And if you think about it right now, most of the top-level domains are open. Travel has a few limitations, EDU has some limitations, Gov has some limitations, but the others are pretty open. So now we're going to have thousands, all with different sets of rules, so people are finding and navigating in different ways. So we're going to see search is going to have to change. Because the true purpose of search is to help people find what they're looking for. And when it becomes this much more complex, it's going to have to change. So if you have good ideas, I'd be happy to collaborate with you and partner with you because it's really a golden opportunity for both companies and entrepreneurs alike to find the ways that consumers can be guided through this process and learn how to search and find what they're looking for as all of these brands and big generics start to adopt the new technology. The final strategy that we'll see a lot of top-level domains using is using their top-level domain as a catalyst for innovation. I think we'll see a lot of disruptive innovation coming out of this because it is new technology, because it is so new and hasn't happened like this at this scale before. I think we're going to see companies start to invest in innovation teams around the top-level domain. I know I've been leading a lot of meetings with people where we're sitting around with a room full of digital people and marketing people and engineers and technical people, and we're brainstorming on, okay, what else can we do? What can we do to make a better experience for the consumer? What else can we do with this technology that we haven't thought of? And that's what we're going to see these companies doing. Heinz applied for ketchup, Johnson & Johnson for baby, Safeway applied for grocery and Just For You. What's important about that is Just For You is their mobile app. So how are they going to tie their Just For You mobile app to their Just For You top-level domain? Lots of opportunities there to integrate the physical experience, the online experience, the mobile app experience. All of these companies have made some pretty bold, innovative moves, and I think that we'll see them integrating what are they doing in mobile, what are they doing in social media, how are people getting to their domain names, how do they use the domain name, all in new ways. And this will be the catalyst for some really disruptive innovation in business models, as well as the online experience. And for every one of these early adopters, they have the opportunity to have an industry leadership position. I'm using the example here in the photography space. Canon, Flickr, Vistaprint, Epson, they've all applied, but Facebook and MySpace and Instagram didn't. So what can they do with this competitive edge? They've got maybe a 3 to 4 year window before these other companies can apply and be launched into the internet. So what could they do as an industry leader with this opportunity? So I'm gonna wrap up here and then open it up for questions with just a couple of other probing questions that I know I talk with, particularly a lot of companies who have not applied, is to look at, could you be partnering with someone else in your supply chain? Could you be working with an existing brand who has applied? This is really the opportunity to understand this list of who has applied. Half of the world's brands have applied, many of them for more than one. So what are they doing with that? And how could you partner with them? How could you partner with Google with 101? They are looking to partner with companies, and there will be tremendous opportunities there. And then how is this going to affect search? One of the analogies I look at right now is zip codes. When zip codes were introduced back in the 1950s, it created the direct mail industry. And it created that because it provided segmentation that didn't exist. Much like search creates some segmentation, these top-level domains could become the zip codes of the internet, that they're giving you some indication of what the website's about. So those could become category regulators. And the big question, and the way I've had this question answered for me from most of the big search companies, is the top level now going to be weighted at a higher level? And the answer is likely yes. That top level has typically not been factored into search algorithms because it's been irrelevant, but it's about to become relevant. So will that top level weight heavily? And will it matter how many people or how many companies or websites are in that top level? Those are all some of the questions that you want to be asking and probing to understand how it's going to impact search. And I always start when I'm looking with companies right now is, what are your current analytics telling you? How are people getting to you? That could be a driving force of where do you want to be in this new landscape. If your analytics are telling you that there are certain generic terms that people are using to find you, and there's a top level domain with those exact terms, you might want to have your domain name in those spaces. Because if you don't go and get it, somebody else might. And that's an important point here when you start to look at where you want your domain name to reside, because .com is not going to be the gold standard. And as each of these generic top-level domains come online, you will have a short window of time called a sunrise period, where if you have a legitimate brand, a trademark for your brand, you'll have the first opportunity to secure your domain name. If you miss that opportunity, then it's opened up to anybody. And that could create real problems if you miss that opportunity. You remember back in the early 90s when there was this mad scramble for gambling.com and sex.com and money.com? Well, that could be happening now, but across thousands of top-level domains. So if there's something that you want in one of these categories, you need to be paying attention, because once that sunrise period closes and it's open to anyone, you might miss it. And this is coming towards the end of this year. The IDNs are going live in this summer, July, August timeframe. The first generics will start to launch in the fourth quarter of this year. So the time to really be looking at the analytics and understanding where do you want your domain name to reside is now. And the reason for that too is the trademark issue, because if you want to participate in these sunrises, you have to have a trademark, and it has to be in a trademark clearinghouse database. So if your brand is something that you want across these domains, you need to make sure that you have those steps in place now, because otherwise you'll miss the window. So just a few considerations of how this could be used. Think about programs like Homeland.Showtime, celebrities like JessicaSimpson.Macy's, the personalization, JenWolfe.Macy's. Amex could have communities being formed like Entrepreneurs.Open and create social networks of entrepreneurs within its .open top-level domain. There are tremendous new opportunities in the nomenclature and the architecture of how these companies use their top-level domain to create new communities, to create new ways of navigating the internet, and to create new and better experiences for people. So, do you apply next time? This is really important. The window is closed, so right now you cannot apply for a new top-level domain, but ICANN is committed to offering this up again. ICANN is committed that once all of these 1,400 top-level domains launch, they will do a security and stability study to ensure that the security and stability of the internet is strong. And if they determine that it can handle a further expansion, they will open this up again. The estimated time frame for that is 2 to 3 years, which means it would be another probably year to 2 years before the next round of applicants would have the opportunity to be launched into the root of the internet. So you're talking about probably a 4 to 5 year gap for companies who have applied versus those who haven't. And that's why if you haven't applied and you want to be in, it's really important to be looking at who has applied, what does their application provide, could you partner with them, could you acquire them if you want to be in before the next round. So I'm going to go ahead and just wrap up and then take some questions. I will just tell you, I have written a book on this. I've spent a lot of time researching, talking to companies, understanding what they're doing, and I put some information on the tables about the book. And if you'd like to have access to these slides, I do have a domain name set up where you can go in and access all the slides that I just presented. And with that, I think I stayed on time, hopefully around on time, so I'm happy to take questions.
Hi, Jennifer.
I'm loud. No, please, Lloyd. Oh, okay.
No, you go.
You mentioned 100. Good morning.
Good morning.
Grant Simmons, Search Agency. You mentioned 185,000 fee, but if you actually want to be a registrar, there's additional fees. Is that correct on an annual basis?
Yes, so it's actually a registry. The registry operator is the one who runs the top-level domain. So VeriSign runs .com right now. Newstar runs .biz, .info. Yes, for the most part, most of the brands who have applied are using Newstar, or VeriSign, or ARI, or one of the big registry operators, and they'll spend probably another $200,000 to $250,000 a year at a base level to operate their top-level domain. So there is some ongoing cost. You know, for most large companies, that's not an enormous amount of money, but it definitely is a line item on the budget. Those numbers go up based upon how many subdomains you have, essentially. So if you create a really robust closed ecosystem, it's going to cost you more to operate that, whereas if you keep it very simple, you're probably talking about a couple $100,000 a year to operate it.
Oh, okay. Hi, Jennifer. I actually have a few questions
Sure.
to ask you. Have you had a chance to talk to Yahoo, Google, or?
Yes,
Okay.
I've talked to all of them.
And can you explain if you know how they're changing their algorithms?
They're all going to change their algorithms, because if you think about search at its inherent level, it's designed to help people find what they're looking for. And if the internet changes in this dramatic way, they have to adjust them. Whether or not it's going to weight the top-level domain higher, nobody's really saying that for sure. But what I'm inferring from what they're telling me is it's going to. And I think when you also look at Google with 101 and their vested interest in migrating people, they're going to make some changes in their search algorithms that favor a top-level domain versus a com.
Did IPv6 play a role in this at all?
It does. I mean, IPv6 is because essentially we're running out of numbers. And so one of the driving forces for ICANN, I serve on the GNSO Council of ICANN, by the way, so I'm deep into policy, and I'll try not to go too far off into policy land. But one of the driving forces behind this was that we're out of domain names. I mean, if you've ever sat in a brainstorming session with somebody trying to create a new brand and you're looking for com, it's not there. We're saturated. So one of the driving forces was that by expanding this, we would create and foster innovation, entrepreneurship, more opportunities that don't exist. And IPv6 definitely plays a role because we're running out of combinations.
Can I just ask people in the room if anyone is given, like especially those who are SEO experts? Has anybody given this any
I already saw one tweet that they felt
thought?
this was career suicide, SEO-wise.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question around that, actually. So, Jennifer, first of all, great job this morning.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah, can you talk about the switching costs involved here, especially around domain equity as you migrate from a .com to one of these new TLDs?
So it's going to have an impact, right? I mean, we've never seen anything like this happen before, so to a certain extent, we're trying to predict trends based upon past information and what we can see. If you're talking about when the domainer industry, where people were spending lots of money, I know Uber Cab spent $1 million to get Uber.com. Is that going to change? I think to some extent it will. I think certain domains are still going to have a lot of value, and I think if you look at the list and why were there certain domains that so many people want, like app and like cloud and search? Because they're super valuable, because people want to be in that space. So I think those are going to be the ones that we're looking at with premium values. Then I think there are some, like .mom could have a lot of value for companies like P&G, whereas for some of the others, like I think Google has a LOL. I mean, there's some others that are a little bit more random. They're probably going to have lower value. So in terms of equity value, is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm thinking, I totally get if this is, going to be a whole new area, almost like a micro domain, if you're going to run channels on YouTube, and this is all kind of new for the internet. I totally get that. I understand the security aspects of someone like Citibank wanting to maybe kind of secure that domain. What I struggle with as an SEO especially is when you start talking about an established brand like Macy's, or Williams-Sonoma, all of the equity,
Oh, I see. Okay.
all of that's built up, whether it be from a link portfolio or
Right.
from just the age of the domain, the vintage of your domain. All of that for years has had tremendous value.
Right.
For someone like that brand to move over to one of these top-level domains will come traditionally at a very high cost, at the very least for a short-term, very
Right.
painful, kind of cost for at least 3 months as things migrate over. How are brands coping with that and working through that dilemma?
That's a great question, and that is a very specific challenge, because that is the exact conversation that's going on in a lot of these brands, which is, okay, well, if I just redirect, am I losing everything that I've spent all this time building? And so then the question becomes, well, are we going to make the leap of faith and have the faith that this is going to be more valuable in the long term and we need to just cut the cord and go over here? Or do we keep operating both of them in tandem? I don't know that there's a clear answer to that. I think that's why it's so critical that for these brands who did apply, they have a search person in the room, a data person in the room, an engineer in the room, a marketer in the room. You have to have all of these pieces. And at the agency, I've briefed a lot of agencies, and I think for a lot of agencies right now, this isn't what their clients are demanding, because it's still kind of out in the future. And I think once it becomes more relevant to their clients, they're going to be jumping in on it too. And I've briefed agencies in the process of developing new brands and some other things to help them understand the impact. But that is a great question. I mean, and really that's where there's opportunity, because if you can figure that one out, you've got a great new business to start. And that's really where I think we're going to see some entrepreneurs finding the solution to that question, because that's a pain point. That's a real clear pain point. And I don't necessarily have the answer right now. I know that we have to look at what's happening with Google and what they're going to be doing. And I think they're going to be a driving force. I think Amazon's going to be a driving force, because if they're going to move consumer behavior fast enough, then you're going to want to make the leap of faith. But if it's going to be a slow roll process, then I think you're going to want to be developing these things in tandem and be ready to flip the switch when the time is right. I know from my conversations with Google and Amazon and Microsoft and a lot of these places, people are thinking the consumer adoption window is about a 3 to 5 year window. So within about 3 years, depending upon how fast companies are at providing these benefits, we'll see that adoption, and that's when that shift will occur. But those are just predicted trends.
Rob, you going to help out here? You're going to make me run all over the floor.
Thanks very much. It's Jeff Lochner from Media Post. Why in the world is this going to matter at all to consumers? Because the browser bar and the search box have pretty much obviated the need to think about domain names at all. I can just type Sears anywhere, and in a click, I'm at Sears. And I don't really want to have to remember chainsaw.sears or underwear.sears to get any...
That's the real question, right?
Chainsaws, man, chainsaws. Nothing better. But from a consumer standpoint, and apps just take up the whole window anyway. You're not ever looking at a domain name. You're always where you want to be. Why does it matter to consumer behavior at all?
So there's two reasons why it will matter to consumers. One is that the issue of security is going to be there. Because right now if you type in Sears and you go to the wrong site and it looks just like Sears and you put in your credit card and somebody steals from you, that causes pain for you. And so when consumers are having that pain resolved for them because they know they can trust, and particularly in the banking industry and the finance industries, I think where they're plagued with it most and where it has the most pain point for people, that's going to be a real consumer benefit. I think the other driving force is going to be as that cord to cable is cut, the need for the desktop or the flat screen is going to become more important. Because you're right, and this is why everything integrates, because people are finding you through their mobile app, that's what they're using. But at some point they're going to go home and they're going to sit down on their couch and they're going to want to see something on a big screen. And when that cord to cable is cut, and it's not a cable box providing all your channels, it's the internet, that's where these start to have value. So that if you want to, say Sears starts to get into the home improvement content business, and you want to watch something about how to use your chainsaw, and they've got content there, then you might be typing in, you know what, I want to go see how I use my new chainsaw from Sears. And you might be sitting on your couch and type in chainsaw.sears. So I think those are the next evolutions that as these things start to occur and you change the way, you definitely are going away from the desktop, but it's going to be a flat screen, it's going to be your source of content and entertainment. Well, again, I mean, this is where new opportunities will evolve and entrepreneurs will solve those problems so that we can use the technology, because there is a greater capacity for Sears to use that. And now what Sears can do, if you've probably read the new Digital Age book, but now what Sears can do that provides a benefit for you is they're tracking what you're doing, that you're watching this, they know that. Now they're going to provide you discounts and other information. I mean, it's all becoming integrated, but it's that migration to where the domain name is the channel for all your content, information, shopping. Your app is going to help get you there, social media is going to help get you there, but that's your anchor. That's where people end up on that flat screen.
Any more questions? By the way, just for what it's worth, it took me all of 2 seconds, and I can get a free shipping chainsaw with Prime on Amazon.com. just so you know.
Can we get access to that Prezi?
Yes. There was a. Let me make sure that's up here.
Amazon.
And I can send it out. I can send it out to y'all so that you have it. I'm sorry, I froze up here. I'll get it circulated for sure. But yeah, I definitely have a place for you to get it.
Yeah, and Frost, I think, tweeted out a version of this.
Did you? Oh, thank you. Okay,
yeah.
Thanks.
So if you follow Frost on Twitter, it's actually up there on the screen, the URL to the deck. Anybody else? That's it? Well, one more. Grant, the guy with the dreamy voice has another question. Can you do your best Roger Rabbit for us?
It's too early or too late. So I'm sitting here, and as an SEO guy, I don't get this. I'm serious. I understand everything about it. I don't get any of the value unless this is adopted by search engines as a different de facto way of searching. I get the opportunity. I get the idea that for branding it's brilliant. But as an SEO guy, I don't see the .com going away. I don't see fundamentally, search engines trying to make it a complex system simple. I think they're just going to keep simple. So you've spoke to the guys at Google and Yahoo and Bing. Are they looking at this from a search perspective, a true search perspective? They're not going to favor domains. Google can't do that. So what's going to happen?
I think
Incredulous.
I think they're looking at it. I think it's always hard, and I know when you're in the business of search and it's been formed to a certain way, it's hard to see the benefits, perhaps, because it's potentially threatening the way you do things right now. But I think that's why you see Google making this bold move with 101 applications. I mean, they are in the business of search, and I think that they're looking at the future of the internet and seeing that this has value. So I think that's where companies need to look at it and say, do I really think that Google and Amazon and Microsoft are investing this money and nothing's going to change? I think it will. And what I've tried to provide is, here are the potential strategies. It is going to unfold over the next few years. But I do think all the algorithms are going to change, and how they change and what that means there is a tremendous opportunity in the search business, because in a year, your customers are going to be asking you, your clients are going to be saying, what do I need to do? Do I need to be in another domain name or not? And that's where it's important that people are talking about this finally, so that we can get the good ideas at the table. And I'd welcome having a longer conversation with you, because I think it's important to get smart people talking about what's happening.
I see a huge impact with the search term in the domain. I mean, something like century21.com as opposed to century.21.realestate.
Or .homes, or .apartments.
Or home improvement,
right.
or whatever it is. So I can see it almost as a channel like DIY network, something like that. When you talk about the internet taking over cable and satellite, having that search term, names that channel. So the home improvement channel or .home improvement can have a huge impact on search results.
Right. And this is where, too, you want to watch the timing, because if you are Century 21 and you want to have century21.realestate or .homes or .apartments or listings, I mean, trust me, there's 900 of these out there. There's a long list of them, and they're related to every category out there. And if you want to have one of those, you need to make sure you know when they go live, because if you don't go in and secure it and someone else does, then you've got a potential problem. Particularly if you have a brand that more than one company legitimately has the trademark rights to that brand, which is very typical in a global system. I mean, realize if I own Century 21 in the UK or in Australia, just because there's a Century 21 here in the US, we have equal rights. So if I'm Century 21 in Australia and I apply for that first, Century 21 here in the US is out. You're never going to get it.
Is that it? We run out of questions, gang? Well, great. Well, thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, thanks.